that you and I should think different. Now, the first words had to do with our actions when we get up and when we're rolling. The question is, what do we do when we're in sit-down mode and you're in your easy chair or you're waking up in the morning? Notice here it says, set your mind. This is about thinking. Again, it's an imperative. It's an active, present tense, always thinking about the things above. How does God feel about the things that are happening? What's God think about these things? How does he feel? I mean, what is the Spirit of God grieved about today? I was talking to one of our teachers today, bless their hearts, and school just started a few days ago, and he's talking about how already some of the students that were going to be in his school have been killed by other people because of crimes and because of lawlessness. And you sit there and you hear these sorts of things, and he was grieving, and then I'm grieving because he's grieving. And how does God grieve over the lawlessness, the things that are around us? Listen, we got to get God's thoughts on all of these different things. And so it says, set your mind on the things above, not on the things of the earth. You and I should be thinking different. And as we think different, our pursuits will ultimately become different as we get up and roll out of that chair, roll out of that bed, whatever the case might be. You know, it says it in Romans chapter 12, that amazing passage there. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that we present our bodies, what? A living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. But verse 2 says, and do not be conformed to this world, but be what? Transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. So you got to flush the mind of the constant toxic things. How many of you remember running in from when you were playing and your mom would say, you know, dinner, dinner, and you come running in and the first thing she would say is what? Go wash your hands. And how many remember like, my hands are fine, Mom? I always said that. It's like, I don't need to wash these hands. There's not even dirt on them. And then you'd go in there, you know, and you put some soap on them and you're like, you know, or sometimes you just go in and come on, be honest. You'd just go and turn the water on. Yeah, I washed them. How many of you did that? Come on. Joe, be honest. Yeah, Joe's raising his hand. I told you. Okay. So, you know, listen, so important. The world is thinking one thing, and you and I have to wash our minds and think differently about sexuality, about family, about finances, about priorities, about life. It's just so important. Look at this. This is a C.S. Lewis quote that is like so powerful. Think about the men and women who have made lasting changes on the earth. And he attributes it, and I think rightly so, to this fact that they thought different than their neighbors and their other family members. Listen to these words. If you read history, you will find that the Christians who did most for the present world were just those who thought most of the next. They weren't thinking about here as much as they were thinking about there, and therefore it affected everything they did here for there. Look at this. The apostles themselves, who set on foot the conversion of the Roman Empire. You think of it, took 300 years. They totally changed the Roman Empire in the preaching of the gospel. Great men built up the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. How were they changed? By men like Wycliffe and Tyndale and Huss and the men and women who were around them that thought about heaven and not the things of the earth and were willing to risk their life. And they totally changed the Middle Ages. The English evangelicals who abolished the slave trade. How did that happen? By socialism? Communism? No, by evangelical Christians like Wilberforce. I mean, you need to read his story. I mean, here's a guy who leads the Bible Society in England. He's in Parliament. He's doing all of these amazing things. And his goal is, because he recognized the Imago Dei, ends up being the catalyst, because he's setting his mind on things above, to end the slave trade in the British Empire. That's who did it. It was evangelicals. All left their mark on earth precisely because their minds were occupied with heaven. Listen, you want to do something great? You want to do something amazing? You want to leave a legacy? Think more about heaven and it will impact everything around you. He concludes this whole section by saying this. Aim at heaven. In other words, in your thinking, aim at heaven. In your pursuits, aim at heaven. And you'll get earth thrown in. But if you aim at earth, you'll end up with neither. And that's exactly what the world does. And Satan laughs all the way to the bank. That's why you and I need to think different. And then thinking different, we pursue different.